Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. I am Wendy Hembrock.
I'm Brent Barrett.
And I'm Kevin Bachelder.
And we're here for the big finish, Arcane Season 2. We're going to be talking about spoilers for everything we've seen for episodes 7, 8, and 9, leading into the big finish. Welcome, everybody. We have a lot to talk about. This could be a long one.
Roller coaster of emotions.
Also, just a reminder before we start getting into the details to come by our Discord. We have an Arcane channel. We have folks watching. We have a lot of folks that are getting excited about this show. They've been listening to us talk about it and are starting to get on board. So I expect there'll be even more conversation in the next couple weeks. So definitely come by our Discord if you haven't already. We love the conversation there.
I'm very pleased myself to see a number of people who've told us that either on the Discord or through other channels with us that they started watching this because we were so excited about it, and I've just fell in love with it. So that's great.
Yeah, it was great. I saw on Facebook somebody who posted from Track TV, one of the tracking apps, that they were watching the very first episode of season 1, and in the comments they said Kevin was the trigger.
Nice.
So thank you, and yeah, see, anytime we can turn folks on to other cool shows, we love it.
Yes, we only use our powers for good.
Well, speak for yourself.
As a collective.
Oh, okay.
So we want to talk about these episodes. First up, we're going to talk about some general thoughts and ratings. So for me, I had very high expectations going in about how we would resolve the story, how we would resolve some of these character arcs. It was a little bit rushed, but we kind of had thought that might be the case just because there wasn't that much time left. But overall, I thought they did a great job in terms of resolving the story, the main characters. There was ups and downs. There were things that I didn't expect. And from a overall rating, I'm just going to rate these 3 all together. I'm going to give it 9 out of 10 monkey bombs.
Ooh, cool. Yeah, I think the glimpses in episode 7 really set up the next 2 episodes for us really well. I think they did a good job there. And I think that, contrary to what you said, Wendy, I think the show wrapped up the major character and plot lines very well in my view. I don't think it was rushed, and I don't think it was lingered either. I thought it was like perfect. It just felt just right. Yeah, and I don't know if later on we're going to talk about some predictions, but I'm gonna go over my predictions because I'm really excited about some of that. But I would give each individual episode a rating. I'm going to give episode 7 a low watch it now, but my son pointed out, he watched one of our Arcane podcasts, and his friends started watching it because they're into League of Legends. And he pointed out that if you're not a regular listener of our podcast, you probably don't understand those ratings. So they actually lay out on a scale of 1 to 10. So that's equivalent to an 8. So I've basically given the first episode 7, an 8. Episode 9, I gave a 9. And of course, episode 8, I gave a 9. And episode 9, I gave a 10, which are equivalent to Watch It Now and Watch It Now High. So loved it. Loved every minute of them. It just built and built, and it was amazing.
Yeah, for me, and we'll talk about it, episode 7, I didn't know I needed that episode, but thank goodness I got a chance to see it. Such a profound impact. Episode 8, it's kind of like the start of the 2-part finale, and like any 2-parter, even a great show, it got to kind of build up to what comes in the final. So, I mean, ratings wise, I'd go, to Watch It Now, 9 or 10 out of 10. Second one, maybe I'll just a hair down, just because it can't all be perfect. Maybe a low Watch It Now, and then certainly a Watch It Now in the end. And while I wouldn't use the word rushed, although I see a lot of reviewers and folks talking about that, what I will say is the pace was even more breakneck than some maybe earlier season 2 stuff, or definitely some season 1 stuff. So it's not that it's a bad thing, but it was definitely, there wasn't even a moment to take a breath with everything that was happening. So that's much better than going too slow. So don't get me wrong, it's not a complaint, it's more an observation. But yeah, like any show that I've really loved, you're always a little nervous going into the final episode or final couple of episodes. But much like Wendy said. It delivered on all of it and more.
It did. So let's get into the highlights. And each one of us is going to share a highlight. We're going to talk about it. And I'm going to start. Kevin, you mentioned episode 7. For me, the whole episode was a highlight. You talked about not realizing you needed it. We had talked before about, hey, what happened to Echo and Heimerdinger? We don't really know what happened to Jace. We just know he came back really different. And that time had passed. And this was kind of the whole explainer for everything that had happened to them. But it wasn't just the explainer for what happened to them. We got this wonderful alternate history of the characters that we had lost. And I thought they did a fantastic job with that, especially where we were going to go with Powder, Jinx in particular, because we actually had a reality where, she didn't go insane. Vi died, and it all happened in the same initiating heist job. She died, Violet died, but everyone else lived. And in that world, they never had a civil war. There was peace. Silco and Vander, healed their rift. We had Benzo still alive. We had the other 2 boys in the gang alive. So that was really outstanding, I thought. The only part that was really weird was Heimerdinger, because he kind of went on a vacation, and he stated how long it was. I didn't write down the number. It was over 1,000 days. So they'd been gone for quite a long time, which we kind of suspected from Jace's appearance wherever he was. But I really liked the parallels between what was happening to them, what was happening to Jace, because he was in this world in which, the future that was coming, that could be avoided.
The darkest timeline.
Yeah, exactly. So I liked that. I liked that Heimerdinger and Echo were separated for a while. And like I said, Heimerdinger was a busker while he was waiting for Echo to show up. I loved the idea of Heimerdinger taking on Echo as his new protege, and Powder, that Powder was, she even made a comment about Genius and Madness are twins. And that just everything about that was just wonderful. So I'll stop talking so you guys can gush over it too.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, it was like almost 4 years, 1,100, a little over 1,100 days that Heimerdinger was there, so it was definitely a while. Yeah, I wanted to point out that I believe it was made, maybe not really clear, but the implication was that Jace also died in the explosion that killed Vi, because Hextech didn't get developed. And he would have continued developing it, and we never saw him in that timeline. And we saw later on that Powder had those crystals she stored away and she never brought out, never played with them herself, so Hextech just never went anywhere, which helped them have such a beautiful place. But I also love this. It was both fitting in character and also a little sad that Heimerdinger kind of sacrificed his return to the timeline to save Echo when the machine went a little haywire. But boy, Jason hit that timeline. Very, very scary stuff. But I just adored Powder in this one, and Powder and Echo, and how Echo was so freaked out by her being so nice. And I love the one bit where she's like, do you want me to change? And he's like, no, no, don't change. I just love that bit. And that ties into one of my highlights later, too, that I'll talk about. Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, not knowing where this show is going to go is one of the reasons I love it so much. And to have it take us to an alternate universe, and one where not only did Echo get to see all these folks that he no longer was seeing, so did we as viewers. And to see them, on a much more successful path, a much more calm. I mean, that episode is just teeming with color in all the places. You don't have the depressing motifs for a show that, goes so bad so often. It was just so wonderful to see, and to see Powder get a chance or for us to really, she had no knowledge of other timelines for us to see what she could be. Wow, that was just powerful stuff, all of it. And poor Echo, trying to acclimate and figure it out, and then, recreate enough to get back to his place. I mean, and their relationship, all the little touches, and as this show is just beautiful on it. Parallels, dialogue, scenes, visuals. There are so many of them. I got to give a big shout out basically to the fandom. And as folks know, I've gone down the rabbit hole deep, and the last couple of days since these aired and watching them, there have been so many wonderful threads on social media where I've seen so many things with folks sharing, some of those scenes and some other things. I mean, I've got like a dozen different things from this episode, that some of which is going to tie into the later discussions. But I mean, even the two, or maybe probably three, and I don't have to say them all here at the same time, but as far as just absolute emotional stirring moments for me, I've very much liked when Echo drew Vi grown up, to show part of what she was like, because she died so much younger. He said it was from his dream, but we all know that he got to see her. So sharing that with her, that was pretty powerful stuff. To be able to do that after he had such a hard time accepting what was really going on in this universe, that was some pretty cool stuff. And another little thing was the necklace that he gave her. And this is something, again, credit to the fans. If you take a look at that as the images are spinning, you'll see powder in there, in the flower. And the flower itself is apparently a peonies, which is known to be representative of unattainable love. How's that for perfect type setting?
Oh, that's bittersweet.
Isn't it?
Yeah, especially because he also, he and Powder had an unfulfilled love. We had a glimmer of it. That was one of the things I really liked, was that they were teenagers and they were being pushed by the people around them to just be teens in love. And who are you going to the dance with? And that whole scene when they danced together was so lovely. The way that it was animated, it was it was the happy ending that we wanted for the characters that we knew in our universe. So that was fantastic. And I also really liked that they defined Echo's time power to be 4 seconds. And I loved how he came to it too. It's like, everyone goes splat. He's like, nope, it's definitely 4. I'm not going to say any more.
Don't have to tell you why. Trust me.
The other thing, I rated these based on the monkey bombs, but that was a fantastic thing that they wove from this episode. And then when Echo actually is back in, our main world, and he's using the device again to keep resetting, we get a little nod to, there's a little monkey bomb, the monkey guy, the clambering monkey is inside of that device. I loved how that was such a menacing image in season 1, and that flipped it into how they were collaborating together to solve the problem. So I really, really like that too.
Another thing about the happy timeline that I'll point out, I'm a big shipper, so of course I loved the Powder Echo stuff, but the fact that Echo picked up on pretty quickly that this Echo and Powder had a relationship, and I loved how he stopped her from kissing him and said, "Can we pretend like it's the first time?" So that he could actually get to experience that. I thought that was just very touching.
Yeah,
it was very beautiful. It really was. And talking about that dance, too, I loved visually, if you go back to the first season, episode 4, first time we see Crew Jinx, on the airship. Visually, the shot is from the feet up with the boots and all, and then here at the dance, she makes the grand entrance, and it's the same angle, only the different shoes up to her. the same visual idea as to how that goes. And as you said, a beautiful song, in French. So, they give us so much to appreciate that moment and what's kind of going on there and all that. It's just so powerful. It really just makes you appreciate so much. I mean, this episode definitely for me too, and Wendy kind of touched on it. It showed, or it was able to get me to really appreciate the Echo character even more. I mean, here's a guy who had a chance to be in an almost utopia situation here by going to this universe. And he still chose to find a way to get back to his own, to try to help those people, that he knew. And therefore, he gave up everything. Everything.
He said people were depending on him.
Yeah. I mean, so talk about making a choice well outside of yourself, and demonstrating it by what we were able to see here. Wow. I mean, can you think about that? That's just amazing stuff, too. And again, to the fandom, they had a great one thread I saw. This is in this universe. Powder / Jinx's lair, whatever you want to call it, the whole the space she lives in. In season 1, it's ultra dark; you can barely see anything. Season 2, it lights up a little, lighting wise, when Isha is there with her. And then in this world, actually, it's much brighter. And the little touch that I didn't even notice till I saw someone mention it is, in this universe, she's got railings around so she doesn't fall off. Die. Because it's a pretty, it's a big fall down from that spot. But in this universe, you would naturally just put up railings, which Jinx wouldn't have done. It's like, oh man, just subtle touches that I just loved.
Yeah, the other one that I loved was the Vi doll, compared to the doll that Jinx had in season 1. And the last little bit is, that you're talking about Echo. He's the one who convinced Heimerdinger that they needed to create this, because Heimerdinger was like, it doesn't exist here, we can't create it. And then he goes back to, I guess, the scene of the crime, right? The original caper, and pulls it out of the wall to bring these little shards together so that they can actually create it. So yeah, his persistence and capability. I'm a little bit disappointed because he's a character that's very compartmentalized from the other characters, maybe because he is such a powerful character. But it was a great feature for Echo in this episode for me. So that was my highlight to get us going, Brent.
Okay. I got a highlight. It's from a little later in the story. We're talking actually, I think, the last episode. But and it's one little snippet. My highlight is the whole sequence where, first of all, it's revealed that Maddie's a traitor. And that also made me a little relieved, because then I'm like, oh, that's why I couldn't figure out how they got together after the time jump. It's because Mel's mom had made her, it forced her into this relationship so she could be a spy. Okay, but my highlight was as Maddie is about to shoot Caitlin in the head, Mel uses her powers and deflects that bullet, and Maddie shoots herself in the head, which I thought was just, yes. I just almost fist pumped at that point. I was like, yes, that's the perfect outcome for that. I just loved it. That's my highlight.
And a good one. Really good one. That was a grand entrance for Mel, too, after that happened. So that was great to see there. How many different ones can we talk about?
Well, wait, I want to talk about that one first before we go on your comment.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I love that Maddie gets hers, and I also realized at the same time, I was like, oh, it was a setup right from the moment she was pounding her chest to help get Caitlin elected, because she was the first one to sign on. She was the first one thumping her chest when Ambassa nominated her. So I'm wondering, how soon after that was she recruited to be the inside girl. Great choice. Okay, Kevin, let's start with one.
So many, but you can only pick one, Kevin.
So many. Pretty cool to see Mel interact with the sorceress to understand some of her powers and the relationship with her mother, Black Rose, and all that. I mean, we don't get that all explained to us. Might be coming in a future series, but to see her kind of understand that she does have, I guess you call it mage powers, for want of a better description. But also in terms of how that'll eventually impact what happens later on as well, to see just how powerful Mel is. That was visually pretty stunning and story-wise pretty interesting.
Yeah, I loved how that was that full circle kind of moment too, because we have all the way back to Mom shows up with the captive. Mom's got Caitlin as her captive, presumably, and Mel is intervening. She even says, you're still not a wolf yet. But then at the end, Mel does say, the wolf has no mercy. And that's when she throws all the magic at Mom, sends her to that, I'll call it the Black Rose mage world. And that's when she even further levels up to take on the other mage. I think she's called LeBlanc, maybe. So I loved that because she hadn't given up on her mother. She, was taking control of her powers and also trying to save her mother, which ultimately she couldn't, but she still had that moment of, reunion with her mother before she died. So I loved how they handled all of that, and how her appearance as her mage powers keep growing.
Mm-hmm.
Every time you see her, she's got something a little bit different going on. And I love when she teams up with Caitlin. They just seem to have two really sharp minds working together. So that comes across in their scenes, I think.
Yeah, and of course, you didn't mention it, but that final moment with her mother actually, her last words were, "You are the wolf."
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I also like how, and maybe, I don't know if this is going to violate a highlight, because it's not really, but it's that same moment following on it where that's pretty much the clear indication to the soldiers that she's now the leader. Mel's now the leader of their people, which I thought was pretty cool too. So not only she's this powerful mage now, who's taken on other mages, but now she's the leader of this big nation of warriors too. So pretty cool.
Yeah, and to tie back even a little more, at the very end, you have her holding her mother's mask, and it's got the big scrape through it. And, I'm wondering when we'll see her wear that mask in the future.
I don't think she will. I don't think she will.
No?
I don't think so.
Okay. Got more on that one, Kevin? Or?
Oh, yeah.
Can I go next? Okay.
No, go ahead.
All right. Well, I got to go because we were talking about episode 7. So I have to go to the reunion back in our timeline between Echo and Jinx. Because that was so poignant that she's suicidal. She had that great talk with Silco, talking about, this is a cycle and the only way to end is to step out, walk away, however you do it. And that she's gonna, she's got gasoline all over the lab and she's gonna blow herself up. And Echo arrives and he's using his 4 seconds to say, "Hey, wait, can't we just talk before you blow us all up?" And call back to episode 7. Somebody told me that there's always something to, it's never too late. There's something worth building for. And, he's able to convince her to, basically decide to help. And then when we see them again, we were just talking about the scene with Mel and Caitlin and Bessa, that's when they arrive, is in the middle of that confrontation to help. And I was definitely fooled by that final teaser trailer because it was implying that we were going to get sort of a crazy unhinged Jinx, which I thought we might get after Isha died. But instead it was, the crazy train is coming to help instead. So I liked how they used they springboarded episode 7 into how Echo was going to plausibly team up with Jinx and get into the fight, and then even bring Savika and some of the people from Zahn, because that's when they came in as the cavalry into the fight too.
Yeah. I mean, that's all great stuff. I love that Jinx arrival. And at first she's kind of like laid out like that, and you're like, wait a minute, that almost looks a bit like Echo, but definitely was Jinx. But yeah, the bridge stuff was really cool. The bridge stuff, you know what I mean? The part where Echo comes back was hilarious in a way too, because she just kept blowing herself up. And then the one point where he's like, I need to rest, and she's like, all right, and then she just falls off the bridge and he pulls her back. I think that was just so really well done. Very, very emotional, but also kind of a little humorous at times too. It just a little bit of dark humor, but God, that was a great one. That the whole great sequence between those two. And I mean, and I'll get to that, I guess, later as another highlight, but it gets tragic too, but yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, and talking about that scene, for me, the thing I really kind of stuck out a little bit in terms of how obviously down Jinx is to be not just contemplating killing herself, but actually attempting to multiple times. But after, as you said, a couple of those, when he is just trying to get her, to not do it, and he basically says to the effect of, I'm just going to sit down here and hopefully, don't get blown up. So the next time when she goes to kill herself, I guess as a favor to him, she doesn't use the bomb. She just jumps off.
Yeah.
So it's like she did him a little favor. So, maybe just a little bit of hope there, if she was at least willing to consider his not killing him. But man, and I'll talk a little more about something related to that. But again, just powerful stuff, especially with what he knows as he's trying to get her to not do it. So, and you mentioned it earlier in the thing, Wendy, the fact that his little Z drive thing has got the teeny little monkey bombs in it. So she sees them, and it's maybe just enough to shake her up.
Yeah, I thought so. I mean, she looked at it and was like, hey, I know that.
Yep.
Okay, Brent, I think you're next, right?
Yeah. I'm going to have to kind of tie into okay, I have so many great ones I want to get to, but let's go with, and it's a two-parter because it's connected. It's not two highlights, but they're connected highlights. It's one highlight connected. The bit where Jinx and Vi are back to back, and Vi says something to her about, I didn't think I'd see you again or whatever, and she says, I'm always with you, even when we're worlds apart. And then, of course, the sad part is that's the last thing she says to her. Always with you, sis. At the end of the episode, at the end of the series. I just love that. Just the sisterly bond there that never went away. That, even though she was jealous at points, thinking that Vi was leaving her for Caitlin and that Violet had abandoned her and stuff, that the realization at the end that Powder has, that she's never leaving her sister. She's never going to leave her sister. She never has left her, even when they are worlds apart, right? When they're just on opposite sides. It's just very touching stuff.
Very much so. That was definitely one of my highlights from all of season 2. And another one that mirrors, if you go back to season 1, episode 6, when Powder lit or Jinx at that point lit the flare, blue flare, and Vi came to find her. They were back to back there when the firelight it started, coming at both of them. And if you look at them, you'll see very, very, very similar angles, and the two of them back to back taking care of each other. So yeah, powerful stuff.
Yeah, that was really beautiful. And I don't know if are we going to talk about speculation now about whether that was the end or not.
We can do that at the end. If you
I got notes on that.
Okay, all right. I assumed we were going to save that for a little bit later. I mean, the other part about that was when Jinx and Echo show up, the first thing she says is Vi. She's yelling for her sister as the first thing as part of that fight. Trying to save her. So it's like, yeah, she's there to help, but she was immediately looking for her sister too. But everything about that was great. I also liked that they had kind of broken the two of them off along with what I keep calling the Beast. I know it has other names, but and they're still in that family struggle of, is there any Vander left in there? That was really nicely woven into that stuff too.
And Vi can never give up on people, even to her own detriment.
Yeah, I was going to say to a fault.
Yep. Kevin, what you got next?
Well, if we're going to talk about the sisters, one of the ones I'll pick is that point when Vi finds out after the fight, when she wakes up, and Lourdes kind of tells her Jinx is in jail, and she goes to see her, and goes in to see her, and Jinx spins it on her, leaves her left there in the cell, which is going to lead to a lot more. But doing that, and then with her walking out, and leaving her there, because this is after she's had the we talk about head 6 in BSG. Well, you're talking about head Silco here, with the whole statement about breaking the cycle, killing is the cycle, and all that goes on there, and her dealing with it. But also Jinx says here, just before she punches Vi, you're never going to give up on me, are you? Just understand, and which leads right into what we're going to talk about at the end. But also, as she walks away, she says, "There's no good version of me," which totally contradicts what we just saw in 207, which just gave me chills. So, again, more powerful stuff that I just, that scene got me quite a bit too.
Yeah, no, totally. I definitely agree. And I'll pivot into my highlight after Brent talks, but I'll say it's related to that conversation as well. When she does say, there's no good version of me, and she has this resolve, it really was this kind of acceptance of responsibility that she could change things, and part of that came, I think, from the conversation she had with Caitlin when she talks about, I didn't know your mother was there. I wouldn't,
change anything,
and I wouldn't change anything, but I didn't know. It felt like there was kind of a moment of not reconciliation, but at least recognition of each other that we hadn't really seen between Caitlin and Jinx at all.
Yeah, I mean, that was very, very moving, because Powder had lost her parents, and so she knew what it felt like. Lost her parents twice, I mean, in a sense. And so it was a bit of a connection of like, you're a human being. I know what you're feeling. Not really I'm sorry, but I am in a way. I didn't know, which is kind of the closest she'll come to saying I'm sorry, but just that connection was really cool. And then at the end, as you both have pointed out, the whole conversation with Silco, and then telling Vi if she's leaving, I'm going to break the cycle. And as soon as she said that, and I was watching this, I was like, oh no, what is she going to do? She's going to end it all, isn't she? She's trying to, which of course we later found out she was. But yeah, powerful stuff between. I mean, it was almost like it was. You talk about sometimes putting characters in a room and making them talk, and sometimes I hate that about stories because it's like, come on, get the action. But in this case, she's in a cell. It makes total sense that she has that time with Caitlin to have a little bit of understanding, not necessarily forgiveness per se, but understanding. And then that time with Vi, her imagining of Silco, and then the time with Vi, all because she's stuck in that cell of her own doing. She gave herself up. She realized she needed to give herself up, and she did after they saved Vi from the previous episode. So I thought that was very important too, and very interesting that Powder / Jinx didn't just flee, didn't just run off, and she just gave herself up to the enforcers and to Caitlin.
Yeah, they didn't mention Isha, but that was the sort of the last straw that put her in that place.
Yeah, part of breaking the cycle. I mean, yeah. Isha was part of that cycle. Mm-hmm. She doesn't want that to happen.
And she doesn't want it. She didn't want it for her.
Yeah.
Okay, Brent, what do you got?
Thought you were going to do one, or did you?
Well, that was mine. It was
okay.
The whole Silco and Caitlin part.
Okay. Well, I'm my favorite character is still Caitlin. So I got a lot of Caitlin stuff and a lot of Caitlin Vi stuff because I'm a big shipper of the two of them. So I'll go with this one. I loved, and we've already talked about this sequence before, but I just want to pinpoint one moment. The moment where Mel and her mother are talking, and you see Caitlin kind of getting up from having been stabbed, having almost had her head blown off, and she's walking around Mel's mom kind of with this look on her face of determination and hatred, and just like, very powerful moment. And then as Mel's mom's talking, Caitlin just comes in and punches her and says, shut up and start fighting or whatever. I just love that scene. Even though Caitlin she's stabbed still, yeah. She's obviously not a physical match for Mel's mom. She knows it, but it's in her character. She can't stand down and she can't give up, and she knows that this fight has to happen, and it's just amazing. Another reason why I love that character so much. I just love Caitlin.
And see, I also thought with that scene, along with loving it for all those reasons too, and having watched this character develop so much over this course of the series, to me, I also saw that as a bit of Vi, very much wearing off on her.
Sure.
Because of all Caitlin's measure and thinking out a plan and everything else. At that point, she just decided, screw it, action.
She just uses her fists. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't see that, but you're right.
Just like Vi has always been with different people over the course of the series talking about. Yep. Just using her fists. So it was very in character.
Yeah, and Caitlin also trained with Mbessa. They sparred together too. So
she never beat her.
I would imagine many conversations were interrupted with fighting between the two of them. Okay, Kevin, what you got next?
The beginning of episode 9, the visual of Jinx lying on the ground with all of her hair in all those directions.
Yep.
Just visually stunning. And then as we said, we roll into the scene. I think, Wendy, you talked a little bit about it, as we get one of the music montages, which they were just aces on, especially in season 2, from so many of the episodes. But the little thing, but very obviously, after she's no longer lying there, as she's starting to torch the whole place, you also recognize that she's now cut off all of her hair. Yep. So talk about making a break from the past. Very symbolic and very powerful stuff.
Yeah, it is, and for a lot of people, like I know when people have dreadlocks for a really, really long time, there's can often be an immense physical, emotional change when you cut that much of your hair off, too. So I saw that and I was like loving it because it was reminding me of, it's a little bit Vi. It's a little bit, she had more color. Like when she shows up on the balloon ship, she's all kinds of colors. She's all mixed together, and it was, to me, a way more optimistic and positive look to her too.
Speaking of that airship too, just to dovetail in there, again, thanks to the fandom on this, screenshots. On that airship, when we get the pullback to see it kind of coming at the whole Hexgate place, as you may recall, the helmet that Isha always wore had a big X and a spiral. And up on the airship, what's right above Jinx? A big X and a spiral.
Very cool. Did not notice.
Whoa, nice. I did not notice that.
Yeah.
That's cool. Very cool.
The show's got so many of those. That's what I love. And I'm only catching a tiny percentage of them, but just so cool.
Yeah. That's a good one, Kevin.
That is a good one. I'm going to switch to some characters we haven't talked about. Another highlight for me was actually the Jason, I'll call it the Jason Victor reunion. They're enemies. It's Jace's attack that is the thing that kind of flips Victor from, before that he was like all commune, peace, power, and then after that attack, that's when he sort of decides the coin is tails on humanity, and strikes his bargain with Mbessa and Singed to power up again, and start his next level Borgness, I'll call it, and then but always comes back to his friendship and connection with Jace, and ultimately both of them realize that what they were chasing was never as important as their friendship, the importance of each other. We had some timey-wimey stuff with Victor talking about, it's human emotion that is, constantly in conflict with, improving oneself, right? It's like our emotions turn us towards violence and reject our rational capabilities. And he's like, ultimately the only timeline that I could figure that out was the one with his best friend, right? The most human person he knew. So I thought it was actually really well done. I also felt it was really rushed because I still don't really understand a lot of the arcane magic side of it, the distinctions that were happening. So that was my comment when I talked about things being rushed. It was really to, if I wasn't going on the internet and listening to stuff, I would be, and not talking to you two, I would be very confused about how this magic works and who's really behind it, but I did find that all the visuals, like when Jace is seeing what Victor sees, and he's talking about, is this the way that you think the world is? When I love the visualization when Victor starts to kind of emerge again, and then once he actually says, I'm ready, doctor, and he gets plugged in, and literally the arcane corruption splits him in half, and then he turns into that thing that is unrecognizable as a human. But Jace is still searching for Victor in all of that, and he won't leave him, even though he has Mel and a possibly a better life, but he stays with him to the end.
Yeah, it's very, very touching stuff and moving stuff, and being able to show him himself, telling him that Jace is the only one who can basically show him the truth. and watching himself tell Jace that. And a little fist pump for me as well when it was pretty clear that what I had thought, and I think other people had thought too. I think I mentioned some other people thinking it that way back in season 1, episode 2 or whatever, we got the flashback for Jace. That hooded figure was actually Victor, and sure enough, it was. Seeing that too was that whole bit tying together, allowing Victor to realize that he's going down the wrong path. Or was very moving, very touching stuff, and their friendship was just amazing. That it took other people too. It wasn't just the two of them, and it wasn't just Jace saving the world, because I mean Echo had a lot to do with that too, being the last one who wasn't touched and was able to actually throw that machine power source at Victor, so Victor could look at it. And I get what you mean about rushed in that regard. But I'm a big fan of the Marvel movies, which tend to have a lot of that rushing, and I'm fine with it. I just gotta wave my hands and say, yeah, let's go along with the story. But I took it to Victor seeing that power source and seeing into that other timeline, because it came from that other timeline, and said this cannot be. That he was saying that there is a way for humans to prosper. He doesn't have to do this to save humanity from themselves. They can save themselves from themselves. And I think that had a lot to do with it too. So Echo and Jace combined really are what stopped Victor, and I thought that was just great.
Yeah, it was very much their friendship. I mean, when we had kind of crazy Jace show back up and kill Solo, and then we saw him, then go after Victor. I mean, we all talked about it. Almost every fan did. Like, what? Hey, he obviously had a bad time wherever he went. But how can this possibly be okay, what he's doing? So getting a chance in episode 7 to see what he had to go through and to understand its impact, and that, he was, as we said, seeing the darkest timeline, and then still being committed enough to try to stop the all-powerful Herald himself, and not knowing how he was going to do it because of how powerful he was, and then getting that opening to do it because of Echo's help with the Z drive thrown at him. It was the hug that allowed Victor to then see everything that Jace had seen, to see what the result of what he was doing was going to be. So it was that friendship and just wanting to make sure. He just wanted to be with his friend. They started it together. He wanted them to finish it together. So, yeah, I mean, you can have all kinds of other crazy arcane magic and runes and all these other things, but still at its core, that was the beautiful part of that story, is that Jace just believing it, and Victor having lined it up for many, many years, and at many points to be able to allow it to happen. It's just, it's crazy timey-wimey stuff, but it's just cool to watch it play out for the emotional connection of the characters.
Yeah, and to Brent's point, it definitely didn't occur to me that Victor was recognizing what Echo had done, other than saying, hey, this is something totally unaccounted for. I actually thought, Victor was wrong. And then saying, Jace, you stopped me. And it's like, no, I think it was Echo. Really. But everything about that I really liked. I also just have to give props. I still don't know which is the hex gate. Like, what's the dome thing? Is that the hex gate?
Yeah.
Which one actually is it? Because
the power source is deep underground for the hex gate, which is the big dome at the top.
Yeah. So, when Jace is pulling it, he's unplugging it. That was a really cool a visual. And I did very much appreciate just the visual style that they chose as things changed. So, as Victor changed, as people experiencing things with Victor, and then we finally got to those, I call them the Nox zombies, the Noxians who, quote, volunteered. That was one ding I had against Victor, because he was saying, I'll only do this if everyone consents. And it's like, well, the Beast didn't consent, and Vander certainly didn't. So, we got there's a flaw built into this right from the jump. But I liked the visualization and how when they actually attacked the city and they're climbing up the walls, they get even more, creepy, not human at all as it went along. And then when we see Jason, that, the culmination, they're these horrible husk things and everything's really distorted. I thought they did a great job. Even though I couldn't necessarily name where are we in that place, I knew we were in those places and how it was changing as things were getting worse.
Kevin, to follow up on the thing you said about the fandom and everybody asking, Jace must have been through some stuff if he came back that kind of crazed and determined. And then what I love about it is the show showed us episode 7, but that wasn't enough to get the answer. It was enough. We thought it was the answer. We thought it was like the guy, he said to the hooded figure, "Send me back. I won't fail this time." And we thought, oh, okay, that explains it. But then at the very end, we get the fact that it's Victor in the hood and what Victor says to him, and the explanation between the two of them. That really sealed it as to why he came back so determined. So I thought that was well done by the storytellers, how they didn't quite give us the answer. We thought they did, but then they gave us the real answer at the end.
Right. Well, multiple layers to it.
Yeah, the other piece about that was, my interpretation was at the same time that Jace was coming back was also when Heimerdinger had just, I'm making a few adjustments. And he walks in and he's like, "What have you done? This is a completely different thing." And then Heimerdinger, says, "I'll be back in a jiff." And then, Echo leaves. And to me, those were happening at the same time to send them back. Maybe it wasn't, but it felt like it when I was watching it.
So are you thinking that they're them going back to their real timeline or whatever was all the same act, or just coincidental?
I think that they were coincidental, but they both needed to happen.
Yeah. Okay.
So that was mine. I think it's Brent's turn.
Okay. All right. I told you. Caitlin, Vi, love them. Got several. So here's another one. And it kind of takes some explanation. While it may not have been the best time for it, that love scene between Vi and Caitlin was very good. I loved it. I loved that it happened. Yes, it seems weird. Vi her sister just stormed off, said she's going to end the cycle. Why would she all of a sudden decide that she's going to, want to make love to Caitlin? But it just fit really well because I think they needed that. I think Vi needed that connection, that reassurance. And I think Caitlin needed a little bit of that too, because both had been lost when it comes to love, basically, and why they're doing what they're doing. And I think it helped quite a bit. So I love that whole sequence, and especially love the line, where Caitlin stops her and says, I was with somebody, and Vi's like, "I really don't care." I just love it.
I don't give an F.
I don't give an F. I love it. That's my highlight.
Yeah, and what's also great was the lead up to it, as you said, because at that point, Vi is just, her life is just falling apart. She totally jinxed, pulled it out from her. She's realizing everything she does is wrong. And Caitlin is coming in, leaning against the wall, going, "Did you think I needed all my guards pulled out of here?" I mean, it's Caitlin. She has a plan. So she was trying to get a point across and get the two of them alone. Whether she knew something was going to happen or not, I just think that was part of the situation so that, things could naturally play out, because their tension back and forth has just been to watch, that energy go back and forth between them, and then to see it.
You're not alone, Vine. You don't blow everything. You don't blow every relationship. I'm here to prove it.
So that was great. I mean, it just was awesome to see. I mean, that's, the whole entire world is going to, what, and
Timing.
It's like, okay, fine, we're going. Might as well. Here we go. It's just you and me.
Yeah, that was definitely my thought. Is like, well, of course you're going to, you don't know what's happening, so you want to you want to get some before you go into the doom battle. And I liked that because we'd had that horrible argument, where they were really throwing punches, verbally at each other about not trusting each other. I was you didn't tell me why, what you were doing with Jinx because you didn't trust me. It was all that stuff under the hood that bubbled over. So that also to me made a lot of sense. But I was like, ick, you're in a prison cell. This is really not. There's nothing romantic about where you've chosen to have sexy time.
Not the time or the place.
That was raw passion.
Yeah.
That's all that was. That was raw passion. That's why it was so natural.
So when I saw that, I was like, oh, Brent will be very happy that they put this scene in there.
Yeah, at the same time.
Probably the final scene, too, because I thought that was a really beautiful.
And that's on my list. But at the time, I was very happy and a little confused. It was like, wait a minute, this is, like you said, wrong time, wrong place. But yay, go for it.
But desperately needed by both parties.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, because Caitlin, we haven't talked about her leadership as much, but she's definitely feeling the weight of it. You could tell in this last couple episodes. Kevin, what's next?
I don't know if I've got anything else other than leading up to the end. If you folks have other things,
you can talk about that. There's no limit to the
You
order.
can start us off talking about that.
Okay, I didn't want to steal anything else if someone else. As we
that's all yours, Kevin. You're the sister thing. You're the sister person. It's all you.
I on so many levels, when all that goes, meaning the big Jason Victor stuff, and now all of a sudden everybody's released, and the sisters and Robo Vander, or Rober the Beast, whatever you're going to call that thing, come crashing down, and I just thought it was so poignant to see Jinx trying to tell why, get off there, get out of there, get away from it.
You can't help him.
Yeah, as we've seen for this whole last couple of episodes, there is not a shard of evidence that Vander's even still there. From the physical nature of what it is, bulletproof and everything else. And as we talked about a little earlier, Vi just cannot give up on people or someone. So, it's a beautiful storytelling bit when you're sitting there as a fan, and Jinx is saying that, and you're right beside her, like, do it, girl, do it. Jump to another ledge, do something, do not get closer. And then when we see the visual of her seeing when Vander actually, came out of the fire of the horrible escape gone wrong, that's just going to set it off. And, so when it goes after her, you just, at least you just knew Jinx was going to have to sacrifice herself. It's her turn, really, to make a move and do something to protect her sister, and to do it right there. She, the different times we've seen Jinx over the entire series, her facial expressions, the tone in her voice, and everything else. She was so much at peace. The look on her face as she's dangling there, with the beast crawling back up her. So you can just tell it's. I almost hate to say this, but you go back to Isha in that moment just before she pulled the trigger.
Yeah.
It is very parallel of, this is what has to be done to protect someone I love. And just gives her the always with you, sis, as she pops the crystal out. So Vi has to let go.
That's
and that was
choice.
Just, wow. No, she, Vi didn't have to do the, I can't hold on, or what you see in other movies or whatever. It's just like, if I pop this out, you got nothing, and I'm going. And that was, I don't know how early on in our podcasts, Brent, and not that other people haven't too, were saying, Yeah, nature of the story. Jinx is going to have to die at the end.
I was sad.
No.
I was sad that I was right, but I was sad.
We're going to have to get around it. So yeah, to see that play out that way. Oh my God. Grab the tissue box.
Yeah, we had talked about that when we talked about season 1, that she probably wasn't going to make it out of this alive. We can talk about that part in a little bit, but when she was in the cell and she was talking, Silco's like, let's break the only way you break this is to stop doing it. And at that point, she's resolved that she can die. She's ready to die, right? And then she's trying to kill herself. So it didn't surprise me at all that she made the same choice that Isha did in terms of the beast. I need to destroy this thing. I need to end this cycle. She did learn the lesson about ending the cycle. And he told her to walk away. And Vi, we talked about it, she's the weak link when it comes to her emotions over the rational choice. She is looking at the beast and still sees some Vander in there, which I don't understand how she did. But when they're falling, we have a brief moment of some Vander memories in the beast. I really liked how it looked like, Powder is turning back towards the beast, almost like she's hugging it. Still, and she even called it Dad earlier in the fight. So, her making that choice of, okay, I'm gonna destroy all the things that have been, part of this bad cycle. I'm not happy about that choice, but she made that choice. She made that decision. And it was, in a way, to break that cycle. So it was the right choice.
That whole sequence was amazing. I mean, starting with, as you pointed out, her calling to Vi to jump to the next level and get away, and when she starts walking to her, there's nothing left for her. You can't save him. Whatever she said, the words. But it all really started, I think, the really emotional part when Vi is under attack and Jinx is the one who dives in to save her and whacks her and Vander Beast off. And it doesn't. I don't think they made it just look that way. I think she did wrap around to kind of embrace a little bit the Vander Beast, even though she knew it wasn't him anymore. But like you said, the memory of him turning off the lights and saying goodnight to them, the two of them when they were little, but then pulling out the bomb and knowing that just falling to the ground isn't going to stop him, it might kill her, but it's not going to kill him. So she does what she was going to do with Echo before and just blows them both up. And the whole time, Vi's on her back, just sobbing, knowing what's happening down there. So just very powerful. The entire sequence was so powerful.
So I don't have any more highlights. I'm ready to speculate on what that ending actually meant.
I got many more highlights. Highlights.
Go ahead, Brent.
Okay. And I already talked about this one, so I'll mark that one off. We're talking about Jinx real quick. So I actually have four more highlights. So let me run to that one at the end where everybody's burning the papers, which I believe have the names of their loved ones who've lost or people they know who've lost that they cared for, and so they burn the papers and they all float away. And you get Echo all alone. He's got the one paper, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I tried to look at it. I think it's kind of a heart shape on it or something. And to my mind, that represents Powder, but it represents the Powder from the other timeline, the loss of Powder here, but it's Powder really, and he just burns it and just lets it float away. To me, that's a highlight. It was just a very moving, touching scene. Loved it.
Absolutely. And again, paralleled visually to when Vi took Powder to sit at that very same spot at the beginning of the series.
Nice.
Yeah, I didn't connect it was the exact same spot. Good call.
Again, fandom. I spent hours looking through threads and parallel struts, man.
Yeah, no, I like that they chose the burning papers, and then when you pulled back from the bridge and you saw all of the sparks, that was really beautiful.
Yeah, and I'm going to combine two of my other highlights here because they're kind of related. The whole sequence of after Jace comes in, and tells everybody we gotta set up our defense here. We gotta fight. If you're going to go run, keep running, don't stop. But the kind of montage we get where all the different people are either deciding to stay or they're sending their loved ones off to some kind of safety. And then that whole bridge scene was really cool too. That bridge is so symbolic. And then they've got the spotlights up, waiting to see if anybody's going to come from Zahn. Nobody comes, so he orders the lights to be turned off, and then they come out of the darkness. Really good sequence. I just loved it.
Yep, very good. And as you said too, out of the darkness.
Yeah,
they're very symbolic, not only to them coming, but to do it. And it wasn't like they had, 200 people coming. It just had a few that were willing to basically die, put their lives on the line to do it.
Yeah, I liked how they brought Gert from, we saw her more in episode 7. She's on that train, leaving, and then she comes back. And then when we're actually in the battle, that's who Vi is carrying across the bridge back to safety, who then, dies.
Was that Gert? I wasn't sure if Gert. That was really her. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
That was Gert. And they also cued her, because Violet initially sees the blue hair and she's like, kind of reacts as if it's powder, but it was Gert.
Yeah, no way powder would be that heavy, even in an Enforcer uniform. We saw her in an Enforcer uniform. She's tiny. My last one has to be my last one. It's actually the last lines said in the entire show. But being the big Vi Caitlyn shipper I am, I just love how they're living in Vi's place, or living in Kate's place. Sorry, living in Kate's place. Clearly a committed couple. Caitlyn's, working on plans for how to rebuild and how to make everything better. Going over the blueprints and everything. And then she hears Violet singing. And I just love that whole sequence where she asks her, she's singing. And then I love the line exchange, where she asks, she's got her head in Vi's shoulder, and she says, "Are you still in the fight?" And I love how Violet then puts her head into Caitlyn's shoulders and says, "I am the dirt under your nails, Cupcake. Nothing's going to clean me out." Perfect ending for me.
Perfect.
I loved it.
Slap a bow on that baby.
Yeah.
Very just great way to go out.
But that wasn't the ending.
That was the last thing said.
That last thing said, not the last image.
Not the last image. And I have questions about that too. So I guess we'll get into that speculation stuff you're talking about.
Yeah. You want to get into that now?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Okay. So we were kind of jumping our order.
Do we have lowlights?
I already gave my lowlight, which was a little bit of rushing through some stuff, but
I got none.
So when the first time I watched it and it was over, I was like, what? I was very sad, but I was also very confused about what is Caitlyn doing? Right. I didn't realize that she's holding Jinx's piece of the grenade that Jinx had. And I couldn't figure out what she was looking at in the archives. And then we had, to me, what was kind of a very somber lead into that very lovely personal scene, which was her saying, that there's light that comes out of this. And we cut to Singe's daughter, and it's like, this guy, it's like he's the one who started all this crap, and he gets his daughter, or whatever version that thing is. So I was feeling very ambivalent about the future by her voiceover. She's like, there's still some light, and I'm like, I don't know, this guy didn't get thrown in jail for all the crimes against humanity he sparked. and then she talks about our story isn't over. And so, and then we see the balloon at the end, but then when we have the end and we have the Jinx graffiti, I was like, aha, maybe we're not really over. But then I had to go to the internet and fandom to find great speculation. I listened to, I think the person's channel is called Corin, and he was talking about what she was looking at was the ductwork inside the space that they were in. Yep. And somebody else said, you know, Jinx has shimmer powers, right? So she can move faster than we can see. She can move super fast. So, and when she does, there's like a purple trail when she moves. And in that shot before the explosion, there's like a little trail. So, and of course, you know, Sci-Fi 101, no body, no proof. And then the balloon is from episode 1 when she says, someday I want to fly in one of those balloons. So now I'm very optimistic that she's not dead.
Oh, I think she's dead. I don't want her to be alive at all. I mean, I think she had to end this chapter of the story. I think I was going to ask about the balloon at the end too, and it's got the color scheme of Echo. So to my mind, that was Echo going off in the balloon. Maybe because he remembered that Jinx said that, so he's going off in her memory or something. But I can't begin to bring myself to want or wish that she's alive. I think she has to have died there, or it just doesn't make any sense. And I would be very upset with this show and this universe if she survived that. And yeah, definitely Caitlin was looking at the vents and looking at, because remember, her family's legacy was they had a way to make Zaun happen, to get rid of all the gray and get rid of all the smog and stuff. And I think that's Caitlin saying, yes, we're going to do it. We're going to make this place better for everybody.
And just to kind of expand on that a bit, because I don't think we're going to see Jinx in any of the future follow-up series that they're going to do. I mean, they're already in development on, for other locations in the League of Legends world. For the reason you mentioned, Brent, seeing her would kind of take away from what we all thought was a wonderful, thing to do for her sister and all. But the fun and the emotional balance on it all is that having that hope or some evidence that makes it look like it's possible is really all you kind of need. Or certainly for me, I'm not going to speak for everyone, that idea. Because, I mean, the thing that I also love to tie into that is that, and you pointed out when you talked about during the big fight when they were back to back. And Jinx says to her, I'm always with you, even when we're worlds apart. Which leads to the speculation that when Echo was trying to save her from killing herself, after the camera cut away, he told her about the alternate universe and what she could have been and could be, to realize it's worth it to still be in this world if you can. And add to that her final words, again, always with you, meaning she's not going anywhere. And also the fact of the head talk about walking away, and Jinx knowing that Caitlin would always be looking for her. So she can't walk away. Vi. So she would have to almost stage her own death to allow both of them to have a fresh start. Vi can think that she made a great sacrifice and move on with Caitlin to be happy, and Jinx can just go off and kind of disappear in that airship
with Echo.
I think
that airship had Echo's colors. It was his scheme.
It had Echo's colors. There's also people looking at the video saying the airship mirrors the beginning of the series when how to use that line. However,
it's the same ship.
In the first episode, you see the airship going, and you see Piltover there, like it's going to Piltover. Here, we see the airship with nothing, like it's going off somewhere else.
We don't know where it's going.
We don't know where it's kind of going. So, I mean, and all that other stuff. Because also in that scene with Caitlin looking at the blueprints and having the monkey bomb head at that very end before it cuts. She's got a nice little smile on her face, like she knows she's just figured it out. Jinx is still alive.
Oh, I thought the smile was because she heard Vice singing.
This is what I love about this show.
Yeah.
You want to go down and go through social media looking at the Jinx is alive hashtags and Jinx lives. I mean,
here's how I want Powder to live. I'll take your line about always with you, even if we're worlds apart, to mean there's somehow we're going to get Powder from the happy timeline and Vi from this timeline back together.
Hey,
that I could live with. I could live with that.
If they work that into another series about Mel and the LeBlanc and all that, who knows? But no, this is where it's a lot of fun to see, folks.
Otherwise, I want her to remain dead. I'm sorry.
Well, that's why I say I don't see her actually being in a future one for that reason. I mean, as the fan of the character, sure, but I just think this idea that there's enough evidence there, if you want to go down a rabbit hole, to think she's at least might be, I'm good with that. That gives me a smile and I can walk away.
Can we both agree that Jinx is dead? Powder may have survived, but Jinx is dead? Maybe? I don't know.
I think
so. If it's Powder who's
trying to make it work.
On Shimmer. That's why.
I think it's Pinks now.
Pinks.
But yeah, and this is again as Wendy mentioned, I saw a half dozen of those videos. The Jinx is alive on YouTube with all that same evidence, and it just gives me a big fat smile.
It's like it's the whole army of the people wearing Jinx's, the blue hair, like the Jinx army that we saw earlier in the season. Those are all those people who are doing those Jinx Lives videos.
It could very well be. It's just it's another way to enjoy the show, but still respect the choice that the character made to protect her sister, and still go out with Caitlin and Vi, for whatever the next story might be. It's just can't thank the creators enough for what they were able to put together here. And there's also so many great videos, and you folks, many of you know it if you're listening to it still at this point. The care that went into everything from the amazing visuals to the parallels to the music choices to the voice acting all of this to create what it is. And still, even with all this beauty and amazing stuff, it still comes down to the characters and making us care that we're talking about Jinx is alive and whatever else,
The music.
I mean, think about it.
That
amazing.
What better choice for that song, and how Jinx falling and blowing herself up ends with "Please Let Me Go."
Yes. Yep. So many of the other songs too. If the way I would watch the episodes is just watch them, as we talked about, and then I go back and I turn the captioning on, and using in the captioning they've got the lyrics, and man, I've seen it, although I haven't seen it lined up. The song that Powder and Echo dance to in the alternate universe, as I said, is in, I believe, French. But I saw her on social media. Someone had the translations, and same thing. It is just going to make you bawl your eyes out.
Yep.
So it doesn't matter what language the music is in either. They make it work beautifully.
So you talked about how the characters, to me, they are the secret sauce. I know I'm guessing Brent has no change in his favorite character. Echo definitely went up on my list, because of these 3 episodes, and so did Heimerdinger, because he started out talking about the dangers of the Arcane, but eventually he came around to participate. So those were some things that I really appreciated. And Mel, I think Mel really emerged in this final 3 as well.
Yeah, Caitlin's still my number 1, and I made a note of this, so I have to say it in the final episode, at the end of the final episode. Doesn't she look really cool with that eye patch and the cool black sweater she's wearing? She looks like a badass spy. She looks like she's right out of Archer or something. I love her.
Oh, she's got some great stuff there.
I didn't say it, but sorry, Kevin. The eye patch too. It's kind of a highlight of mine. Is that moment where she is fighting Mel's mom, with a blade right at her eye, and then she realizes she could go get those doodads off of her, and she sacrifices her eye to get them.
Yep.
I thought that was just badass.
Yeah.
Yep. Certainly character growth.
Yeah.
Beginning to end, Caitlin's pretty amazing. But as Wendy kind of touched on, I found myself too kind of running through the character list, and each of them had such growth, such commitment to what needed to be done. Echo probably went up the most for me towards the end of season 2.
Yeah, me too.
With what he did and what, the impact on him personally. So, and that's what I love, all of it. And I'm almost certain we're going to get more Mel on whatever the next series might be. It just certainly seems like they're telegraphing that. I'm all for it. But yeah, it's, as it'll be in almost any show I watch, it's the sisterly relationship, and certainly all of them. Jinx, Powder, Vi, just mic drop. Beautiful.
They don't have any great sisters in the next Arcane series. Kevin isn't watching.
Well, like I said, I mean, more power to these folks for another series. I know they've said one's already been in development for over a year, so who knows what it might be. And I'll be there, but let's face it, this one is going to hold its special place.
This is, I don't know about you guys, but after this was over, I was telling myself this, it's too early to say because, recency bias, but this series has got to go down as one of the best genre shows ever in my book. I don't know where it ranks, but it's up there.
It is in the top of whatever list we put together, I would say. Absolutely. Yes. For doing all the things, the genre side of it, different things from time travel to alternate universes to magics, and then with the characters to make you really care about them and the genre aspects.
So much so
there.
That a campaign started that saying Jinx is not dead.
There you go. So yeah, no, this just, WoW doesn't begin to cover it.
Well, apparently there's lots more characters in the game.
Oh, there are, yeah.
So you learned a little bit there.
Who knows where we'll go next? Yeah, I stumbled onto a video that was literally talking about the skins of the avatars and how they've changed because of the show, and I was like, whoa, this is not. I walked through the wrong door.
Yeah, if you go to the wiki with all the characters, you were mentioning the characters. There are pages and pages and pages. So many characters. But I was clicking on some of our favorite characters, so I just wanted to read a little bit more, just because I've already read them before. But last time I was at these wiki pages, they showed the different skins available, and they added, as you said, Arcane skin for them all, and they all looked like they came right out of the show. So it's pretty cool.
So, do we want to talk about our predictions? How did we do?
The predictions we made. Well, I can gloat a little bit, but I think I'm not alone. There were 2 predictions I made at the end of season 1. One was the guy in the hood was Victor, who went back to save Jace. That's true. It was him. Because he tried it over and over and over again, giving him different runes, apparently. I don't know what that significance was, but it was trying to indicate that it was different attempts to beat the cycle, to win the cycle, and finally he succeeded. But the other one was, sadly, and I'm still standing by this, I don't care what you Jinx is alive people say, Jinx is dead. And I was very sad. I was very happy earlier in the season when I said, oh, I'm probably wrong in that prediction. It looks like she's going to survive. But... And I'm so glad the way she went out. It wasn't a case of Vi having to kill her, which is what I was afraid might happen. But it was a case of her saving her sister. And I thought that was just fitting, just beautiful.
Yeah, I don't think I made any predictions. That's never been something I'm good at, other than, and it wasn't a prediction, it was a wish that Jinx wouldn't die. But
yeah, you're bad at predictions.
It definitely appears as if she did.
Yeah, I don't remember. I think I predicted one of the 2 sisters would die, maybe. I don't remember specifically. I did think it was going to come down to the two of them in opposition. So I'm glad that wasn't the direction they went, because it's kind of cliche.
Yeah.
And that they didn't redeem Jinx fully, right? They didn't try to, flip it that she did do the things she did.
Right.
Like even in the cell when she was talking, Caitlin said, it doesn't matter what you do good, it doesn't erase that mistake that you made.
No, that we made. Caitlin made a point of saying mistakes that we made.
Yeah, well, anybody, it was true for anyone, including her.
Yeah.
So, so I appreciated that about her character arc. She did become less crazy, but I don't know if she's really sane still.
But either way, Powder is alive in the alternate universe.
Yeah, she is. Yeah.
Well,
there
I mean, the other thing that I had read was potentially she could have, there was still some arcane stuff floating around that, maybe she blew herself into another timeline. Maybe that balloon was on an alternate timeline that she's on. So she's gone from Vi's world, but she's living somewhere else.
If she had to take over another Powder, that'd be sad for that other Powder, though. Just like we saw when Echo left and Powder looked up and saw our Echo in the machine, but saw her Echo down on the bottom. And he's like, what happened? So while Echo was there, he was taking over that guy. So I like your idea, but that would mean that Powder doesn't get to live her life because, Jinx has taken over her. So I don't know.
Well, Pinks might be making that Powder's life, not headed towards the Jinx direction.
Maybe.
We don't know. Any final thoughts before we wrap things up?
Amazing show.
Yep. Big thank you to the community as a whole and Brent and Wendy and all, just making sure that I got over my animation bias and watched this show.
We know your sisterly bias is stronger than your animation bias.
Yes, evidence is clear there, yes.
All right. We've heard it. Yeah, no, this was definitely a show that I was very surprised at, how much it offered from where we started. So with that, I want to thank everybody for listening to this whole series. Maybe you listened and got spoiled and now you're going to go watch. Maybe you're going to go back and rewatch. We might have to do rewatch in a little while. We get exciting news about the future. But I want to thank you all for listening, posting on Discord, watching us on YouTube. And I want to thank Kevin and Brent for a lot of fun talking about a really good show. We'll see you soon.
Catch you next time.
Take care, gang.